Welcome back, Retromancers. It's been quite a long time, but I assure you, we are still alive. Are you indeed still alive, Mike?
Yes.
All jokes aside, it's been a really long time, and we're contemplating a potential return, and we don't really know what that looks like. So we just kind of wanted to have like a very informal, kind of open little dialogue here in the comments or whatever to find out, what the state of affairs is and what we might like to do. But one thing that I would say is that, I have seen comments over the years. Every once in a while I get a comment on my phone that says like, oh, I miss you guys, or hope you would come back, which does make my day. So I just want to let you know that I do see that. How have you been these past 5 years? Have you missed the Retromancers, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, would we finish up on The Last Guardian?
Guardian Legend? The Nintendo game?
Yeah,
Yes.
so it was, we finished the game, and then you said, oh wait, there's this boss rush mode that you gotta do. And then it was like the first boss was the hardest boss. Mm-hmm. And I completely botched the beginning of the fight. It was like I got 2 hits with the spaghetti laser.
Yes.
And I was down to a hit. I entered a zone. I don't know what it was, and just finished. But there was this one moment where it was like 2 lasers coming in at once, and it was like pixel perfect, like maneuvering between it. And then the killing blow was right after.
Yeah, I think that's where, if I remember right, I think we pulled the thumbnade for that, where I'm like, oh my god, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then I think I died like 2 seconds into the next.
And then I think we made a promise maybe that decades hence we might return to try that again. So maybe we'll do that. But if I remember right, it's been a long time. But then after that, I know that we kind of, we both got kind of busy doing our own things. I tried to keep the channel alive a little bit by doing some live streaming stuff. So I think I did Shadowrun on the Super Nintendo, which is cool. And then the Nintendo game Sweet Home, which was like an awesome horror game. And that we kind of figured out some good technological solutions there, but then things just kind of dissolved. But it's kind of interesting to see where game streaming has gone, because not to give ourselves too much credit, but I think we kind of really anticipated sort of the format that's kind of emerged of sort of like the picture-in-picture boxes and all this kind of stuff, because back when we were doing it, like 11 years ago in the beginning, it was just basically mostly voiceovers.
Yeah, it was typically the Let's Play videos where, you would just see recorded, the gameplay happening, and then you'd get the voice, and then usually like the little cutout in the beginning and the end, and that was it. And then in our case, we put ourselves into the game, but it was tricky trying to figure out, well, first making it happen, and then in a non-intrusive way so that it was still featuring the game, but you could still clearly see us talking for reactions and whatever nonsense that was going on. And and it worked pretty well. It's like you look at it and it's like, oh, this is just a Let's Play video, but this was 11 years ago.
Yeah, that's I think when we started, and then I think our last videos were kind of 5 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
Not to get into too many details, but I've been doing a lot of work over the past couple of years, sort of inventing media streaming related technologies. So maybe there's kind of cool things we can bring to bear there. Mike, you've also been doing just some computer coding stuff.
Yep.
But to sort of bring things back around here, I'd really like to understand, so if you can comment and let us know, sort of like what kind of content, if we were to return, would you like to see us do, or what was your favorite of the kind of stuff that we used to do, and some consideration. So something maybe, be a little bit candid of kind of like why we slowed down years ago and then eventually stopped was mainly, I think our 2 pain points would probably be just being co-present was challenging for us because we don't live super close anymore, and also just like the effort to like set up and break down and edit, because it literally would take like 100 hours back then sometimes on one of the longer episodes to edit together. So I think to enable what we want to do more frequently, we need to figure out a way to sort of do something that's roughly the same quality, but in a way that we can just sort of set it up, do it, and run, and then we'll be motivated to do it. And I think technology might be there to sort of enable that. So is that kind of, do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, it's always been a scheduling conflict or something like that, because I have kids and family duties and things like that. So usually things like that would come up last second, or Keith would have to do something with work or some other crazy science thing that he's doing, and then it just got the windows of time were just shrinking, and then it just became, well, to invest hours to just maybe get something, and sometimes we wouldn't even finish the video in one session. It would take a couple, especially for the longer games. So not only to get together, schedule, set everything up and film, but also to do that consistently to finish a longer game so that we remember what we were doing, because some games you had to remember to keep going. Shadowgate was like notorious like that. It just got difficult, and then things just become drift and you lose track.
So that you mentioned Shadowgate, what I was thinking is that some of the things that might be the most fun for us to do, and hopefully the audience, because I actually enjoyed the Shadowgate kind of long play that we did, because it worked out really well where you had played the game recently and knew all the answers, but I didn't.
Right.
So we kind of had the best of both worlds there, where like I'm kind of like actually figuring out things in real time, but you would be able to protect it from getting too boring if I like really got stuck. So you can like give me hints. So maybe we can do like the Uninvited or like those kind of like point and click kind of games, because those are pretty cool back in the day, where like one of us will be sort of the designated like guide.
Right.
So that could be a cool format. And also, obviously in the past, and we still have it set up over there, we had like all the live consoles all connected, and we're doing everything like with the traditional hardware, which is like really complicated and prevented us from doing easy decentralized co-op, right? But now there's so much more like all the different stores and the different platforms. So I'd be curious to hear like from the audience, like what our format look like what are the tools that we want to have in our tool bag to be able to do that, even if Mike and I are not co-present, and sort of get exactly the same kind of fit and feel that we had in our old videos. Back in the day, we tried using like RetroArch and things like that, but it was like pretty complicated on the latency and stuff. But again, that might all be smoothed out with sort of the newer the stores on like the PlayStation and Switch. And then also games like Shadowgate, they don't need it only becomes a problem if we have two people playing co-op. Right. But if it's a one-person game, that's not an issue. So we could still probably be able to do our same format. Pull you into OBS, and we're just doing the same picture-in-picture, even if we're not physically co-present. So if there's any like cool tools to use that help with the streaming side of things, like StreamYard or like Riverside or anything like that people like to use that can help this, let us know. Or like good, joysticks and things like this to connect into Steam. I think I have like the iBuffalo Super Nintendo joystick. Do you have any of like those,
No, I mean, I just run like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can use just regular stuff. Yeah. That's right.
So,
good point.
Yeah.
But but still, if anyone's out there, if you got the perfect rig and you want to let us know, I'm using a Logitech StreamCam back there. Got a pretty good boom mic, so we'll still try to get like physically co-present sometimes, but I think I want to create like a system that we can just come in without any setup and breakdown, just know that we can just kind of do that. And another benefit there is that will be much more amenable to live streaming with the chat there and involving you guys and gals in the content with us, which is something that I started to do back in the day with those single player streams of Shadowgate and Sweet Home, which was fun. And then I don't want to overpromise, but in my outside world, I had invented a number of technologies for big kind of tech companies and media companies. And there's probably some really interesting ways to bring some of that into the live streaming components with like AI. I don't want to tease too much, but like maybe there's some cool, really weird things that we can do to kind of involve the audience with us in the game, sort of intermediated by some of these tools. So I'll work on that. No promises, but. Is there anything else that you think would be like a pain point or like advice that you're looking for from the people that like to watch our content?
No, I mean, I think that's really it. It's just solving the issue of being able to get the content, together with live, commentary and all that. Not like you play the game and now I'm commenting on that. I mean, it'd be weird, but...
How do I look while I'm playing the game? Tell me.
Right. But ideally, it would still be live reactions and figuring stuff out and dealing with, because then you get those things where you fight a crazy boss or something and something happens and it's like to be there in that moment, that's what makes it fun. And I think that's what makes the best content. And
one other thing that I'll say that I think can help us is I realize now when I watch some of our old content that I seem to really have been obsessed with like editing very heavily, like especially on the Friday the 13th run as an example, right? Like a lot of people were like, hey, we want to see the whole thing to make sure that you're not cheating or whatever, and then I put up the long play after. But then when I watch it back now, I'm like, why was I cutting so much? Like, and there's a lot of streamers out there that I watch now that like things can go for like 10 or 15 seconds while they're just concentrating, whatever, like that's fine. So I think that's another thing that will help me like, or reduce the time, because it's been me kind of doing a lot of the editing, is especially if we move into like a live stream direction, if we just set up things properly and then we just roll with it. Because that was, if you remember, when we did our first Altered Beast video, that was the original sort of pitch of our channel and why people liked it, is that we weren't going to over emote or script things. We were just going to like hang and like be real and also just like love the games, which I think we did. So
yeah. Well, the Friday the 13th run was that was a challenge, I think, just because you somehow happened upon a glitch that just prevented you from getting what was necessary to do the perfect run. Yeah. So there was just like a lot of, not so much dead time, but it's just, you were just going through the same spots over and over again. And there's only so much you can comment about, throwing rocks at zombies and doing whatever. So in that case, it just was more of a glitch of the game. And then I don't think we really did many other really long playthroughs. Forgotten
Worlds.
Right. But that one, it was like, I think like a session or two to get through all of that. But those were more like, those were done quickly though.
Sorry, you just reminded me of something. I think the store in Forgotten Worlds that had this music was like doo, 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 doo. I think it's almost like the same music from like the Symphony of the Night store. Hey, thank you, that guy. But then someone's gonna have to sanity check me on this, but I could have swore like 2 years ago I heard like a rap song or something like that. And I'm like here in the background, and this sounds like the store in like Forgotten Worlds.
They're sampling obscure Genesis games.
I mean, it's not out of the question, I don't know. But anyway, now we're probably going into silly territory. In addition to sort of that kind of like, bureaucratic element of trying to get the channel up and running again, once again, it would be great to understand what kind of content people would like to see. So, as you probably know, our bread and butter back in the day was doing like co-op gameplay of old retro games in the wheelhouse of like Nintendo, Sega, Genesis. We can play newer stuff too, probably with a retro bent. There's a lot of great indie content coming out. Is there any other kinds of content that we didn't do back then but you wanted to do, or that you think the audience would like?
The single player challenge type things, those are good. And now I know a lot of modern indie games kind of almost build in something like that.
Oh, like built-in speedrunning kind of stuff. I don't know if we have time to go into like full crazy speedrunning.
It won't be speedrunning because that won't happen. But in terms of things are set up in a way that they expect it. So it's like, all right, if it's expecting a speedrun, then it's expected to be done in a quick, efficient way. So could be interesting.
Yeah. And I know that you have a lot of weird skills, like being able to beat like Resident Evil without weapons and things like this.
Yeah, I mean that was
some weird challenges.
Yeah.
I'll say for my part, like some of the content that we made back in the day that I actually had the most fun doing were, I mean, we had games that like required a lot of attention, or we were trying to do something like the Friday the 13th Perfect Run, which has gone into some like world records books and stuff, which is pretty cool. But I had the most fun in the games where we could relax and joke around very organically. So Shadowrun, as an example, like we're actually puzzle solving and stuff, and Anticipation, I thought was really fun. That very weird Nintendo game that's like some kind of Pictionary bastardization, but that was just like, it had a lot of organic just humor to it. So maybe those, if anyone has suggestions for games that are kind of more in the Shadowgate kind of range of things, or weird co-op games, I guess some of the party games would sort of fit into like the Anticipation.
Yeah, something that you don't have to really think too much, or you don't need too much like gameplay skills. It's
Dokapon Kingdom.
Well, we did Bobble, but that was different. That was just test of endurance to get through that one.
Yeah, I remember we got totally lucky in that. I remember where the final like door that you have to find to get into the secret area at the end.
Yeah.
Like, remember we beat the stage.
Yep.
And after you kill everybody on the stage in Bobble, it'll automatically move you to the next stage in like 2 seconds. And there's a special stage where you have to do this weird condition and fall into a secret door. And then we were trying to get over to it, and then I accidentally killed the last guy, and I was like, no, we're going to miss it, but then you just, like, fell into it at the last second.
I think
we freaked out.
I think that's what I did most of the time. It's just, like, an unintentional fall or failure. And then...
Yeah. Might take a little bit of work on my side, but I would love to do some series that are a little bit more maybe... like a little bit into the video essay kind of territory, but maybe like bite-sized, deeper discussions about some of like the great moments in certain retro video games, or that like really, you know, spark some interesting thought, or where we might have some insight. So as an example, something that jumps out to me as something that where I personally feel like I would have a lot to say sort of philosophically is the ending scene of Xenogears, that whole like dialogue with Krellian and Faye. You know, there's a lot of interesting Gnostic stuff, and I know there's some channels out there that kind of focus on that exclusively. And I think I have a couple of insights that I don't think I've heard anyone say before, so it might be cool to like talk about why the scene was so cool and like go into the depths of it. And maybe as an offshoot of that, maybe just like emotionally impactful moments that maybe don't necessarily have to be philosophically deep. Like as an example, one that I remember is when Rydia comes back in Final Fantasy 4/2.
Yep.
Like that was like when I was a kid, I was like, that blew my mind, and you know, like that kind of thing. I don't know, is there any like sort of kind of moments or something like that you feel like, oh, like that's such a cool thing, I'd love to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why, but in Final Fantasy VII, with, you know, the whole Aerith scene with Sephiroth, and to me, it's like, it was surprising, but I don't know. It didn't impact me, like, and I don't know why it didn't.
You're cold, heartless.
I guess so. It's kind of like, well, I guess I don't have that character anymore, and that was kind of like.
So that's your discussion. Here's a scene. Some people think it's emotional, but I didn't really.
And I don't care. But I did, but I don't know. And I'm not saying that because I wasn't invested in it. It's just, I don't know. I think because in like older Final Fantasies, you lose characters, and then they just get replaced. So you're like, oh, that's just what Final Fantasy does sometimes.
I've lost thief number 6.
Right.
What am I going to do? But actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking about this even before you mentioned Aerith. An earlier precursor of that doesn't get as much sort of recognition, I guess you could say, but for me was more impactful, was in the Phantasy Star series on Genesis, when I guess spoilers from 40 years ago or whatever. A character named Nay, who's sort of the deuteragonist character, love interest, I guess, of the main character, dies midway in the game, and that really like rocked me. It was probably like I was, must have been like 9 or something like that, but it like emotionally affected me, and it was like beautifully done, and that's also maybe like a moment that would be cool to talk about. And there's a lot of interesting other things to talk about. Like I think Alice in the first Phantasy Star game might have been like a world first of sort of like strong female protagonists in a game, kind of maybe preceding or right around Samus Aran, but you didn't really know Samus was female in Metroid.
The secret ending or whatever.
Yeah. So it's kind of like Phantasy Star kind of maybe has a couple of like firsts in that regard, like just for a list there, but then also like, the first shocking, main character death scene in a game, at least that emotionally impacted me, is one there. Yeah. Great game. And I think I have it somewhere. Like I played Phantasy Star Online back in the day. I'll have to like dig up my old, if it's even like boot upable. But I recreated that character like perfectly, and she's got the claws and everything.
Yeah, that was it. That was her weapon.
Yeah. Yep. Although I think they call them like bars for some reason in the text of the game. So she had like laser bars. Yeah. And then ceramic bars.
The Phantasy Star naming conventions were not easy to remember.
This is a wild tangent, but whatever. We're just having fun here.
Yep.
There was something about that I liked too in Phantasy Star, where unlike games like Final Fantasy, where it's like you had Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, it had its own like language. Yep. Like the fire spells were like Foy. And it was like, Foy was the basic one, then it was Gifoy, and then it was Nafoy, so it was like you kind of get it after a while that Zu is lightning, Foy is fire.
Yep.
And then nothing is the basic, Git is like the mid-level, and like nah is like
Yep.
the big level, and like I don't know, it just made it feel a little bit more like believably alien if this is supposed to be another star system or something like that.
I think
Yeah.
the Persona series also had their own names for
Oh yeah,
all
like
that.
like Bufu and stuff for
Yeah,
like,
that was
cold.
your
Yeah.
ice, and then Gaara or something like that for like the wind attack. It's one of those things that's like, it's different, but I think what made it harder with Phantasy Star, it didn't tell you what they did. At least in newer games, the new, different names, you have a tooltip or some sort of, that one, it was, you cast a spell, did the skill, and saw what happened. Unless you had the nice instruction booklet that it came with. I think that would tell you all of it.
Yeah. I remember the Phantasy Star 2 booklet was like super thick because it had those crazy dungeons that no one could figure out.
Yep.
It was like a dictionary.
Yep.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
I think I still have the one you lent me.
Okay. Oh, so that's what a mandibula is. Remember that from the Encyclopedia Britannica commercial? But anyway, I don't know if you might be interested in this as well, but another kind of content that we can probably do is almost like the inverse of what game theory does, where game theory obviously typically takes like the logic of a video game world and explores kind of like the science of it. How fast is Sonic running or this and that. Obviously,
Right.
they branch out into a lot of other content. But I'd almost love to do the reverse of that, like where the framing device of the video is some really interesting, cool scientific topic, and then a discussion of like the best games that like really explored that concept.
Right.
And just kind of going into it like that. Obviously like quantum mechanics was, BioShock, obviously that's just like a more recent example. But as mentioned earlier, like Xenogears and like, Gnosticism and all that sort of stuff. And maybe just like these interesting novel aspects and maybe how it ties to like current science. Because again, I'm not sure if anyone's been keeping up with my Twitter or whatever, but you may or may not know that I've worked for a lot of major tech companies, and I've personally kind of invented a lot of technologies that are kind of in the zeitgeist, I guess you could say, of like video game, brain computer interface technology, human augmentation, the kind of stuff that you'd see in Xenogears, kind of like merging mind and machine.
Yep.
And all this sort of stuff. So those kind of topics, anything like that, if people are interested in that sort of thing, like just like suggest topics to us, like based on that background, Keith and Mike, this topic and these two games might make for a cool video. I don't know. Is that something that you think would be interesting, or I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the scientific topic, and that could lend itself to something interesting on the gaming side of it.
Maybe we should put up like a poll. Like after we drop this video, we'll put like a couple of polls in the community tab or whatever. Like 2 of them maybe, of sort of like, what era of video games would you like us to make content on? Is it cool if we do newer games that have a retro feel, or do people want us to just stick with sort of the Super Nintendo kind of time period? And then the type of content, like, rank them, based on this. And another thing that we might be able to do based on this is figure out cool ways to collaborate with other channels. Like as an example, I'm not sure if anyone watches the Resonant Arc podcast. That channel I think is really great. They do like really, really deep sort of philosophical conversations about different topics. They recently did like Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
They've had me on before, talk about Xenosaga. So maybe if we do a topic, there's a way to kind of like cross-pollinate with that channel a little bit. And then I also, as part of certain charity work that I do, I also help to run the Life Noggin, like science edutainment channel. So maybe that's a cool way to sort of merge or expand our audience too, where we could do some kind of interesting science gaming topic, and then that could become incorporated in that channel, because that channel has 3 million subscribers.
Right.
So maybe there's a way to kind of cross-pollinate that as well. Any other like collaborators that you think that we should work with, let us know. It could just be gaming co-op, or it could be like roundtable live streaming discussions of cool topics. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you could think of in terms of like content types or like weird things?
Weird things.
I don't know.
There's probably more. There's always more. But I think this list of, do more classic Let's Plays, do more deep dives into, key moments or styles in a game, philosophies, and how games portray that. and then just talking with other people in this same realm, it's a pretty decent way to start things.
Yeah, I just want to say that, at least for me, like, I was really busy in the past couple of years, so I didn't really have a chance to have the time to do it, but I have missed this, and without getting into too much detail, I've really kind of overloaded myself the last couple of years, and I'm kind of at a place in my life where I want to sort of pull back and do things that I actually enjoy again, and I think that this could be, again, like a nice way of coming home to something that I know that we had a lot of fun with. So do you feel that same way, or is it time?
Yeah, I mean, gaming, I still play, a good amount of games. Anything that's really involved, like Baldur's Gate 3, I'd love to play. I just can't invest the time.
Can't quit my job to play Baldur's Gate.
Starfield, like all those long types of games, I'd love to play them, I can't. So it's more of just like the quicker, smaller type of games, like Hollow Knight. I played a lot. I know it's an older game, but that I played a lot. And just stuff from whatever from Steam, like the more retro indie stuff, because those tend to be built in a way that you can play a bit, put it down, and then come back to it, not really forget what you're doing. So I still enjoy playing games, and it would be nice to kind of get back into this nonsense of playing games, doing stupid things, and just, it's fun. So that, I think that was the problem, is it's not that it stopped becoming fun, it was just the fun was buried under a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah. So, that's the plan, is to try to not like go back to our roots, but just try to get back into this, and hopefully technology makes it much, much easier so that it's okay, just flip a switch, play games, have fun.
Absolutely. All right, so with that, I hope everyone's been doing well. It's been obviously a crazy past couple of years, but looking forward to making some more content on the channel and hearing from you all in the comments about what you'd like to see us do. And with that, I think we're good. Anything else? Any last words? Or
no, it's looking forward to getting some more videos out there, and hopefully some of the comments that you provide will help us create the content that you want us to make. And I think that will, if we're making stuff that you want to see, then that's just going to motivate us to continue doing this type of thing. So we need your help to make this a better channel, and we look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, and you should mind, the last thing I want to say is we really can be responsive to you as an audience, because we have a lot of other things going on in our life. As mentioned, there's other channels that I help run that have like millions of subscribers. So the point is, I personally, I don't think you are either, am worried about like, we got to chase the algorithm game and like get the views or whatever. It's more just like we want to have fun ourselves, and we want to make sure that everybody who comes to this channel enjoys what they want. So really let us know what you want to see, because we really have no other like guiding principle on top of us. So anyway, with that, I guess that's it. And Retromancers signing off for now, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. And delete.